In our last class, we reached up to the discussion about the classification of the degenerative changes and disclosed the fact that the classification has been done on the basis of presence of metabolites like the protein, fat, carbohydrate, glycoprotein. Now we shall discuss one by one, and first of all we shall undertake the study of cloudy swelling. Actually, the protein degeneration appears like a series which has been classified as cloudy swelling, vascular degeneration, hydrophic degeneration. This cloudy swelling, as its name indicates, cloudy, a little bit dirty and swelling. It means when the swelling takes place inside the cell, turning the appearance like parboiled rice. That's why it is called cloudy swelling. Except this, it is also known as the parenchymatous degeneration, albuminous degeneration, or granular degeneration. These all names are subjected to certain pathological correlation, as when the parenchyma of the involved structure is destroyed, or because we know the parenchyma is mainly composed of the proteinous substance, and if it is affected, so it is called the parenchymatous. And the most of the organs where the protein is found in the form of albumin, and we know albumin very readily coagulates following certain unfavorable conditions, mostly the heat. And that's why if the albumin is affected, it is called albuminous degeneration. And further, as a result of sublethal injury to certain organs of the body like kidney, heart, liver, the changes takes place in the way that the cytoplasm of the cell turns granular. And due to this granular deposition in the cytoplasm of the affected cell, it is called granular degeneration. Now, we shall consider the factors which are responsible for producing this cloudy swelling. The causes may also be subgrouped into different varieties, like there are certain chemical substances, among them some inorganic substance like phosphorus, arsenic, chloroform, etc., or certain bacterial toxins, or some endogenous like diabetic, hepatic failure, these conditions now, as far the physical factors are concerned, the radiation and burn are the most prominent, which are responsible for producing this type of degenerative change. Afterward, certain infection, and ultimately interference with the blood supply. If ischemic condition appears anywhere, or in case of severe anemia or hypoxia, such type of degenerative changes may take place. Ischemia, as you know, if any part of the organ or the organ on the whole becomes deprived of blood supply, the condition appears in that area is denoted as ischemia. Because blood supply is hampered, naturally oxygen supply will be hampered. It means the area which is ischemic will show hypoxia, and when there is lack of oxygen, there must be reduced oxidative activity, which is essential for production of energy. Until glucose is not oxidized, energy cannot be liberated. It means anyhow, either it is in the form of hypoxia or ischemia or anemia. Anemia is also likewise when the RBC is diminished, or hemoglobin mainly. In the general sense, anemia is correlated with the diminished number of RBC, but in strictly saying, the anemia is strictly concerned with the percentage of hemoglobin. How much hemoglobin is present in the blood, it will carry accordingly the amount of volume of oxygen, and if hemoglobin is diminished, the volume of oxygen will be diminished, thus produces hypoxia in those areas. Now, as a consequence, as a result of these factors, the pathological changes occurring in the site is usual to observe on two bases: the macroscopic observation and the microscopic observation. The observation of affected part with the help of naked eye, how much one can observe with naked eye, is description of the macroscopic. And the naked eye observation reveals about its size, its weight, mostly the size of the affected part as well as its weight both increases due to the intracellular edema. Its consistency becomes dense, also natural. When excessive amount of fluid is collected inside the cell, it will produce the tenseness of the internal environment. The area becomes pale due to compression of the blood vessels when the excessive water is accumulated inside. It will compress the supplying vessel, hampering the blood supply, normal blood supply, and if blood supply is diminished, the appearance must be pale. And when we observe the cut surface, it appears dull, opaque, cloudy, like paraboloid. When the affected area is observed under microscope, a few observations are noticed. Yes, the number one, the parenchymatous cell of the liver, kidney, and heart or other specialized tissue are commonly affected, under which the cells appear swollen. The fine or coarse granules, which is acidophilic, appears inside the cell. The nucleus shows no any change, and the capillary supplying that area becomes constricted, that is due to compression. These are the main observations. Now, as I told priorly, that these all the varieties are actually in sequence a progression of the pathological condition. So, when the microscopic change reveals the presence of granules in the cytoplasm, it describes the cloudy swelling. But if we describe, if we want to know about the vascular degeneration, though it is described as a separate variety, but like at present the market policy, buy one get one free, you can memorize the cloudy swelling, you will find the free knowledge about this vascular degeneration. I mean to say, all the factors like the causative factor or all the pathological changes all remains the same, except the one thing. Where you observe the acidophilic granules in the cytoplasm, it represents the cloudy swelling. If instead you find certain vacuoles in the cytoplasm, it represents the vascular degeneration. These vacuoles are found on the periphery of the nucleus, and further the different small vacuoles coalesces and forms a large droplet, and thus the nucleus one side, causing it eccentric. It means total description persisting of the cloudy swelling, if you include the granules in the cytoplasm, it will describe the cloudy swelling, and if you include the presence of vacuole inside the cytoplasm, it will represent the vacuolar degeneration. In this sense, one thing is important to note, that why the cell swells. That is actually due to failure of sodium pump. Sodium pump fails, resulting in excessive accumulation of water inside the cell, and that's why it becomes waterlogged and the size increases, and due to increase of the size, increase of the water content, the blood vessel compresses, and after compression it gives a pale hue to the affected area, as well as accumulation of excessive water also gives the pale hue to the affected area. Now, it can be viewed by observing a few figures, like observe here one of the case of cloudy swelling, and here you will find that due to failure of the cellular sodium pump, this allows excess sodium to enter the cell and eventually increases cellular water. Thus you will find here that the cells are swollen due to accumulation of the water inside. And when in this upper slide you will find the granules, while in the lower slide you will find excessive accumulation of vacuoles, because this lower slide represents the hydropic degeneration and severe form of the cloudy swelling. It occurs with hypokalemia due to vomiting or diarrhea. There are certain clinical conditions when vomiting or diarrhea takes place. Under that condition, this type of degenerative process occurs in the particular organs. This type of the paleness or excessive accumulation can be further visualized by observing this figure. Here you will find that compressed capillaries. This capillary is compressed, it causes the area to turn pale, and the internal cells are found lodged with the excessive amount of water here. Welcome friends. Today we shall further discuss the next variety of protein degeneration, or better to say, the next stage of the cloudy swelling passing across the vacuolar degeneration. It is called hydropic change or hydropic degeneration due to the fact that excessive accumulation of fluid inside the cell takes place, and that's why it is called hydropic. It is further continuation of the cloudy swelling and severe type of injury which may be irreversible. Here the protein granules which were prominent during the cloudy swelling are not found, and they are completely the area found replaced with water. For production of this type of degenerative change, different causative factors are held responsible for different tissue and organs. For example, the liver cell can be damaged to this level by certain chemical substances like carbon tetrachloride, chloroform, etc., or certain diseases like infective hepatitis. The renal epithelium can develop this type of degenerative changes as a result when there is a condition of intravenous transfusion of hypertonic glucose or saline, or hypokalemia, as we have priorly described, that there are certain conditions when the most of the body fluid is drained out, as in the case of diarrhea or vomiting, the calcium level decreases. There are certain other causes too where the hypokalemia develops, and if it develops, it can produce the hydrophobic regeneration in the renal tubes and that region. Again, the epidermal cells, a blister from any cause, or in the pancreatic islet cells, most frequently due to the diabetes mellitus. Certain neuron may also develop this type of degenerative process, mostly in certain viral infections. Due to these factors, the different type of tissue becomes involved, but on the whole, if we consider the pathological aspect, we observe that number one, the cytoplasm becomes pale, homogeneous and watery, as it is clear when excessive water is accumulated inside the cell, it must become pale, must become waterlogged. The cell is ballooned due to excessive retention of the water. The fluid collects as perinuclear droplets. Further, they coalesces to form the large droplet. We have discussed in the prior class too that the small water droplet started collecting on the periphery of the nuclear membrane, and afterward they all coalesces and forms a large droplet due to the fact the large droplet push the nucleus one side and oblige it to take the eccentric position. The vacuoles are outlined by membrane-like structure. Later on, the nucleus may be pushed to one side. The two types of change also observed especially in the nucleus, that is carrier axis and karyolysis, karyorrhexis, fragmentation of the nucleus, karyolysis, disorganization of the nucleus. In certain cases, only karyorrhexis or only karyolysis may occur, but in some other cases, both karyorrhexis and karyolysis may occur. Now, if we give a look upon the mechanism of the cloudy swelling and vacuolar degeneration, it becomes obvious that the granules of the cloudy swelling and vacuoles of the vacuolar degeneration has the same composition as the mitochondria. The various causes of the above two pathological states damage mitochondria and the respiratory enzymes located therein. Consequently, energy derived from the respiratory enzymes is not available to operate the pump regulating the concentrated or concentration of the ions in the cell. As sodium pump fails, sodium accumulates inside the cell, causing it hypertonic. Thus, extracellular fluid enters the cell to waterlog it. The term tonic is concerned with the accumulation of certain ionic substances which can draw water towards it. When any area becomes hypertonic, it simply means that the sodium concentration is increased and that natrium is responsible, or it has characteristic to draw water towards it, and where excessive sodium is accumulated, there must be excessive accumulation of water, and that's why the condition turns hydropic. There is intracellular proteolysis and glycolysis, or both, leading to an increase in osmotic pressure. In hydropic changes, the acidophilic granules are not seen and the fluid-filled vacuoles are larger and more numerous. In the normal course, how it progresses? Firstly, the condition starts as cloudy swelling, represented by presence of granules in the cytoplasm, characterized by the granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. And when the stage proceeds further, the vacuoles started developing, resulting in vacuolar degeneration and ultimately excessive water accumulation that represents the hydropic change, and ultimately it causes death of the cell. In this way, this sequence completes. And now the fourth variety which we have described, that is the hyaline degeneration. We shall consider this hyaline degeneration next day. Thank you.